Welcome. I'm here with Mike McGill over at Medical Services Company. Mike, will you tell us a little bit about what you do?
Yeah, Mike. Mike McGill, Vice President of IT and Business Integration with Medical Service Company. So I am pretty much the soup to nuts IT leader within the organization. So I oversee our IT, oversee e-commerce, and then oversee business integration. Whenever we do acquisitions or do new startups and everything, I kind of help oversee the detail of getting those up and running.
Right, and perfect. And the reason why I asked you to introduce yourself is because I can't remember your job title apparently.
Fair enough.
And,
It's kind of long.
Director of IT, VP of IT.
Lots of different titles floating around out there.
There are lots of them. So I guess just start it off really. How did you get into IT? What was your background?
Sure. So I kind of took a little bit of the long roundabout path into IT.
Okay.
So graduated from Olmsted Falls, Ohio back in '87 and went to Kent State for a few years, kind of bounced around in some different majors. Decided that I wanted to take a little time off and just work. And when I decided it was time to go back to school, I went back to Cleveland State. And I literally remember sitting in my parents' kitchen and looking down the list of majors at Cleveland State University and seeing computer science.
Yeah.
Like computers are the wave of the future. I mean, this would have been like '93 or something like that. So I was like, all right, I guess I'll go and do computer and information services.
I'll do computers.
Like I said, computer. I keep hearing about these computers. So graduated from Cleveland State with the computer science degree, and kind of started off at the bottom a little bit. Came as a contractor in a medical service company. Most of my IT career has been with medical service company, and it's a little bit of a green field in front of me there. IT was a little bit newer, it's a little kind of a smaller company, but as the company's grown over the years, and I've gotten the opportunity to continue to grow out medical service company. So definitely have done the path from contractor to network admin to systems manager to vice president of IT.
Yeah, and I think that's pretty rare, especially with IT in the current climate, with people sticking at one place for a while.
Right.
Obviously, you can attest to that based on you hiring IT guys.
Oh, but, and it's something common you definitely see on resumes.
Right,
you definitely see a lot of movement.
Yeah, you see the 1 year guys, the 3 year guys. It seems to be a pretty big pattern. But you stuck with it, and I think that is a little bit of, they obviously treat you good enough.
It's a great company, great people there, and I'm kind of a buy and hold kind of guy.
Yeah.
And like I said, there's been just opportunity along the way and never a dull moment. People have asked me, wow, you've been there a long time, and it certainly does not feel like I've been at the same company in the same job for 18 years now, 19 years now. It's been new opportunity, new jobs, new, e-commerce came along. I got an opportunity to lead up e-commerce. And whenever we do acquisitions, get to jump in and help out with that. So kind of got to prove my value there a little bit and get more responsibilities. So it's been fun.
Well, and to that note, as you've grown, you've been able to live every part of that kind of IT life cycle through the scope of one company, which again, it gives you a kind of a rare perspective. So you started out as kind of like their IT guy, IT manager.
Yeah, a little bit. A little bit. Kind of came in as a contractor. Yeah, definitely the IT guy, the multi-hat wearing IT network admin kind of guy.
Yeah. And did you do? So that was mostly just the normal network admin. Did they ever make you do software or not?
No. So I think I've had a great opportunity. So when I finished up my degree at Cleveland State was computer science. So that's pretty much programming. So that's what your degree. You're learning programming. So I got out of Cleveland State, and then as soon as I got out of Cleveland State, I won't bore you with details, but where I was at, I was finishing up another job. And I started taking my Microsoft certifications. I just was like gung-ho in IT learning mode. So I finished up my degree, and while I was in this kind of period of time that I needed to finish up a job I was in, I went ahead and I started focusing on certifications, which felt a lot more like me. I didn't know if I felt like I would really be happy staring at a screen coding. I mean, it's a great job. Great job, obviously great opportunity. But for me, when I started doing the Microsoft certifications and network admin path, it felt more natural to me, like kind of more what I would enjoy. But, so I was able in my job and in my career to really use both of them. So when I say like a soup to nuts, wearing lots of different hats. Yeah, I got
Yeah,
to do
yeah,
some
yeah.
application development. Kind of worked on building some custom applications around a legacy system we had. So I love the diversity of it. I would come in the morning and start working on doing some coding on an application, and then jump onto the Exchange server, and then jump onto the SQL server, and then figure out what's going on the router. And for me, I have a little bit of an ADHD kind of thing going on, so it suited me. I liked the diversity of jumping around and doing different stuff.
So with, I guess, where closer to where you're at now, and maybe with the last couple acquisitions or whatnot, and how you've grown, how has that affected your job and your staff? Like, obviously, you slowly were promoted into a IT leadership role. I assume there wasn't one before you got there.
No, when I started, like I said, it really was kind of a greenfield. Just a combination of luck, which I think we all kind of fall victim, good or bad, to luck, that I kind of found this organization that had this kind of greenfield where somebody who kind of come in and kind of prove their worth a little bit, kind of got that opportunity. So I think it was really through the application development that you kind of show your worth a little bit more. Where there's a lot of value in keeping the infrastructure up and running. I mean, huge value in that. But you get closer to the business a little bit in application development when I'm sitting with the billing manager and we're talking about their processes and how we can build an application. So you kind of get your influence a little bit as you get the opportunity to work from manager to manager within the organization. And I think I would obviously recommend for all people who are new to IT, like, take an interest in what your business is doing.
Actually doing, right? Yeah, you're not just an IT guy sanctioned doing IT. You're an IT company that does medical services, right?
Right. So I would definitely say, if you get an opportunity when you start up in your company, be interested in the business and what they're doing, and then just be able to start to talk that talk a little bit. It's funny in IT. We sit in a room, and as soon as we say like the word API or something, people are like, "Oh, all right, you're talking over my head
eyes
now."
glaze over,
right. But us in IT, when I sit down with you and you say CMN or you say some other acronym, it's like, all right, I got to figure out what you're talking about here. So take the time to try and figure out what they're talking about, what the business is, what the goals of the business is, and you kind of, once you start delivering solutions that help other people accomplish their goals within the organization, and that's when kind of doors start opening up.
Yeah. So as you developed your staff, obviously you're a little less in the trenches now, and you have other people fighting for that.
Right.
What challenges do you have integrating new talent, new processes? Obviously, you're not using the same applications today that you built. Maybe you are, but I assume that there's been some progression of technology.
Yeah, definitely. And I think really what has changed in my tenure, what I've seen, is definitely cloud and cloud technologies. And back in the day when you'd walk in the server room and open the door and be like, all the lights and everything's here. And I think the talent and the staff that you need to maintain an on-prem environment, it changes. We're definitely very much a cloud-first organization now, and I've led us in that direction for a number of different reasons. But it changes the complexion of the IT staff. I mean, I run a very lean and mean IT staff right now. I definitely don't have the team of 20 help desk technicians and a team of network admins. I mean, a lot of that infrastructure management has been outsourced with the cloud. So we basically have tier one that break fix, help our users, help our employees, our customers, as we like to call them, get back up and running. And then we have some more kind of people who can interface with the business a little bit and take kind of what's being talked about in the business and help find technology solutions or help them implement technology solutions they found.
Well, and also translate between different providers and whatnot. I think that a lot of good IT guys are also very resourceful in pulling in, like, I don't know anything about telco, right? This is a true statement. This is actually about me. I know very little. I have a very limited knowledge on telco. It's like one of the few areas of IT where it just has never really come up for me. And I just know the right people to ask, and because of that, I still don't really have expertise in telco, but you need to know who to ask.
I think that's a huge part in developing yourself as you kind of, if you get the opportunity, you choose to go down that path to be more IT leader than hands-on IT guy. There's a break that happens that you resist at first because you want to be like when the server goes down, you want to be like Superman, like I'm going and I'm going to go fix this thing, and you kind of. And I think that maybe that's the personality and the makeup of a person who chooses IT. They like to kind of fix stuff. They like to figure stuff out. But as you scale up as an organization, you're doing the company that you work for a disservice if you want to be the knowledge base for everything. You need to let go. You need to partner with organizations. You need to find people who are smarter than you, and some of those people might end up being on your staff, and some of them are just partners that you work with that help you come up with those solutions. And we're in the midst of something like that right now, looking for a new hosted voice solution. And we're working with a partner to help us make sure we pick the right one.
Phones are elusive. You know, and there's a whole like I said, in any category, it's amazing because you'll have something that seems kind of inconspicuous in and of itself, like even just storage. Like, it's storage. What else is there? A whole lot to it, from the interfaces to how it connects to deduplication. I mean, there's just so much baked into it that at first, telco is another thing. Like, it's just you're just moving cables, right?
Sure.
No, absolutely not. You need to be able to lean on some industry experts for that kind of help.
And I think it gets a little bit back to what we were touching on earlier with cloud. And my philosophy of moving to the cloud is really, I add much more depth to the bench of people who are serving my organization by letting another organization who are experts at that take care of that piece of it. And again, trying to keep my team focused on the service to the organization, from the tier one of the break fix that we get done quickly, again, to the more kind of being the strategic partners within the organization to help get the new technology or help discover new technology. And for things like hosting or storage or voice, again, kind of buying the other experts that can take care of that.
Yeah, absolutely. So as you've kind of evolved as a leader, what challenges are you facing today? Like what I guess, what are you facing that you're like, all right, this is an obstacle I have to overcome? I guess what are some obstacles maybe that you've experienced somewhat recently that you didn't expect?
Right.
Kind of laying a blueprint for other IT leaders.
Well, I think the challenges that all of us IT leaders face, staffing. I mean, we still we haven't outsourced all of it. We still have an IT staff, and finding an IT staff that the right people for the organization, that right people for the team, and there's just a need for great IT talent out there right now, and we're feeling it in our recruiting. But I think kind of more up a little bit to the leadership pathway. It's kind of continuing to be relevant and seen as relevant in the organization, which I think I've had the fortune of proving a baseline of that. But as new leaders come into the organization, as we continue to grow and we bring in a new clinical director, I need to make sure that the clinical director doesn't just see Mike as okay, I'll talk to Mike when I need to somebody to help me with an Excel spreadsheet. I mean, or I need somebody to help me with a very specific IT thing. I need to make sure that I help that person know that I'm more of a strategic partner within the organization. So for us as a growing organization, and kind of bringing new leadership team members on, to continue to show my relevance and kind of show my value, being a little bit more on the strategic side. So it's kind of it's a cyclical thing. Obviously I've gotten the opportunity to kind of do good work, show value, got invited to the executive table, which was a huge thing. I mean, like really something I'm proud and feel blessed to get that opportunity. But you can't rest on your laurels at that point. You need to kind of continue to earn your seat at that table. And so again, it's just kind of continuing to make sure that I'm aware of the newest technologies. I'm bringing, I'm aware of the strategic plan. I think importantly, once you, as a leader, you need to, again, get back to understanding your company, what's important to your company, knowing the strategic plan, and then be able to present solutions that are going to help us to be able to accomplish those goals.
So, and you just touched on it here with understanding new technologies. That's going to be a challenge that anyone anyone implementing technology is going to face. But at what point do you look at a technology and you're like, okay, well, how does that, I need that, or how does that integrate? So if I said AI, right? That might seem a little far out, right?
Yeah, but not really.
But not really.
There's some stuff bouncing in the
so
hopper
what are
there.
The thoughts? What's bouncing in the hopper for AI?
Well, for AI, I think for us to be able to scale, we have some pretty aggressive growth plans, and to be able to scale at a way that the personnel dollars are put in the best places, and we're not paying people to answer questions that AI could probably figure out at least what half of these questions are and what the answers to these questions are. So I'm at the very early stages of exploring chatbot, exploring kind of that. What are the kinds of questions that come in that 5 times out of 10 I'm giving you a set of 10 different answers to the
Yeah.
questions you asked. And how can we make sure that, again, that our people are really spent on the customers who have more in-depth or maybe need more touches or need more value add kind of conversation versus, oh, unplug and replug your
Yeah.
machine back in. So maybe a chatbot could kind of ask some of those questions
Fix
and
some
go,
of
have you
that,
tried
yeah.
unplugging and replugging your machine in? So, I think when you talk about kind of those newer emerging technologies, that's part of my goal is, or part of my job, I should say, is to make sure that I'm kind of got my finger and staying at least a little bit in touch with those things to see how do they tie.
Yeah.
Again, I know the company has a strategic plan to continue to grow, and I know the areas we're looking to grow in, and I know, well, what are the functions that we do in those areas? Okay, how can technology augment that, or again, do the repetitive, digitize, automate the repetitive tasks.
Yeah, and I know that because I know you, you generally favor proactive versus reactive.
Sure.
And
yeah.
I would say that I don't know many people that don't. That seems to be pretty common. You'd rather be not put out fires. You want to put the fires out before they get started.
Right. Whenever possible. I mean, sometimes you're on budgetary constraints and whatnot.
Right.
But yeah.
So, but in that sense, if you kind of know your growth pattern and there's some things you can do to make the quality of life easier, is there ever any pushback when you're trying to implement? I imagine like if you put the chatbots in,
right?
I imagine you probably will have at least one person going like, I just want to talk to a person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think specifically for chatbot, you're probably offering out. Like
Yeah.
you must continue to talk to me.
Right.
You would offer an out. But I think as far as resistance and challenges, I tell you, one of the reasons why I've embraced cloud, why medical service company has embraced cloud, is it really kind of opens up technology to the entire business. Back in, I think for me, and not to speak in huge generalities, but that on-prem model, everything had to run through IT. Hey, Mike, we need a server to run this. And I think it kind of squashed creativity a little bit, where people maybe look to IT. Whereas with cloud technologies, and I think with kind of a younger generation who's used to some of that, they come into the organization and IT is now out of the box of just in the IT department. The business owns technology. And so I think that sometimes, obviously, when you implement new technologies, you can meet with resistance. I mean, chatbot, again, very, very premature kind of what, just again, something that's kind of bouncing around a little bit. Sure, there would be resistance, but again, with cloud technologies, you can have that mentality could come from your director of sales or from your COO. Like, I need to automate. I mean, it's not necessarily that I, as the IT leader, have to be the one continuously bringing new ideas
in, right?
A lot of these ideas come from other people, and again, it's my job to make sure the IT department's a trusted partner. Like, I've seen this. Hey, IT, can you help me implement this, or help me understand better, or help me maybe find the right solution if I want to start implementing AI. It's again kind of building a partnership within the organization.
Yeah, and I would also say that I'm not expecting people to just be like, I like AI, let's implement it, right? Because that can mean so many different things.
Right.
You want it almost to be, hey, I'm having this issue. Can you make my life easier? And maybe AI is the solution to that.
Right.
I think that's kind of how those things evolve.
Right.
Now, as far as your perspective on making life easier, because I think that's kind of what an IT leader's job is. Do you find yourself focusing more on making your life easier for your customers or for your employees? In turn, for your employees to help your customers. Obviously, you wouldn't want to leave one.
Sure.
It's kind of a two-pronged question, but like, who do you feel you support more from your efforts?
I think in the end, we're trying to make the people who take care of our customers, their lives easier. Take good care of them, and then they're going to be able to have the tools to take great care of our customers. There might be some technologies that might be a little more customer facing, but I think a lot of what we do, at Medical Service Company is, again, putting the tools out that's going to help our staff, our associates, be able to be as successful as possible to take great care of our customers.
Yeah. So, as far as creating that, making that I guess not maybe user interfaces to software of a term, but making it easier for your employees to do their jobs, what kind of not necessarily AI automations. What kind of automations do you guys have today that you enjoy that you may not have had, 5 years ago, and how do you expect that to kind of grow?
Yeah, so I mean, again, I think the cloud and new applications that we've developed, or not that we developed, that we deployed that are more cloud-based. Obviously, scalability.
Yeah.
We can scale up real quickly. Just a lot of processes. I guess we've kind of gone through our own digital transformation, where a lot of processes that used to be paper-driven have been digitized now, and creates a lot of efficiencies for our team. Creates a lot of cash flow enhancements too for processes where you kind of waited for this piece of paper that was signed by a customer to go here, then it needs to go here, now it needs to go here, and then finally it can go in front of the person who's going to make sure we release a claim. Now it's by the technician in the field, and the patient signs off, and then that automatically populates back into our ERP system, and now we're ready to go. And you've just saved a lot of, again, people who are just doing repetitive tasks of moving this piece of paper along. So now those people are doing more value-add things, more critical stuff within the organization. So again, I mean, those are maybe just a couple examples between cloud-based and kind of a tablet-based solution that does that digital transformation to eliminate paper. Some of the things that we've done, I think, have helped our employees be able to focus on more value-add things and less kind of repetitive task.
Yeah. So what scares you the most as an IT leader? Like what are your biggest trepidations?
I would think that probably fairly standard. I mean, obviously security. Again, we have trusted partners to help us make sure that we're kind of making sure all those holes are filled. But obviously making sure security is adhered to, and I think it's kind of making sure that I live on the right side of the scales. I think we in IT, which is critical, we'll get super security focused. And I'll tell my team, I was like, look, we can make the place real secure. Let's go unplug the internet from the wall, and nobody's going to get in. I mean, they'll never get in. To like, how does the business wanting to be nimble and wanting to not be held up by overly strict, security policies. Right. So I don't know if it necessarily is a fear, but just a concern of making sure that we're living in the right place on that scale, that we're not sacrificing security for business fluidity, but that we're also not sacrificing business fluidity for security, and kind of making sure you're living on the right place in that security scale.
Yeah, and that's something that a lot of people I experience have a struggle with, because there's so many great new innovations that come out that people immediately grab onto, but they didn't put a thought into security in any way, shape, or form, so then they end up really screwing themselves over because they implement these things that didn't have any kind of security measures in place. They have vulnerabilities. You can get into the whole network now. You've kind of opened up that door. So, but at the same time, you enjoy those new technologies that help you maybe be the first kid on the block doing it, and that could also be a business advantage.
Right.
As far as like the day-to-day on the technologies that you guys implement, would you say that you guys are quick to adapt to new technologies generally, or as you see things like AI, blockchain, IoT might not be as relevant, but like even like SD-WAN or anything else coming down, do you see that as something that is something that you'd immediately jump on, or is it something that you guys really have to churn on?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that I would consider us to be bleeding edge, but maybe a little towards leading edge. We're definitely we're willing to try new technology. So we went to an infrastructure as a service model probably about 6 years ago, maybe 7. We're at the point where our infrastructure, like, either we need to make the capital investment to rebuild what we had, or we needed to look at kind of embracing the cloud and moving that to the cloud. And I spoke to a lot of people within my network, within my industry, to bounce it off of them, and they're all like, oh, I don't know if I would be ready to do that. But after just kind of weighing out the pros and the cons, we felt it was the right time for us to move in that direction. I think that's one example where we might have been a little bit ahead of the curve for our industry. Also, I would say with SD-WAN, you brought up, we are exploring that right now. And I know that's, again, I wouldn't consider it bleeding edge, but it's still a newer technology
Well, in the business application, I mean, yeah, for sure. I think that there's still a fair amount of people that are not skeptical, but they're unsure of what it even is. Like, I think that SD-WAN has really bad marketing, at least for what it is and versus the industry.
I think if you look at SD-WAN, and again, take it to the business. So when I had to kind of sell SD-WAN to my fellow executive team members, we're selling it as a business continuity product, not as, gee, look at the technology.
And optimization.
Let's not talk technology. Let's talk about what happens in a certain market right now if that internet provider goes down. And sometimes how we have to scramble to get the redundant secondary connection, or we may have a market that at the time we decided we don't really need a second internet connection, but then when that one goes down, so it's a business continuity. We become a little blind to the fact if one goes down, the second one picks up. We bound that bandwidth together. So not to get too deep into SD-WAN, but again, really, I think again, my job is to help understand the business use for it and help us understand it's really a business continuity product.
Well, absolutely, and I think that's a really good way of looking at it. And I think that and again, when I say SD-WAN has bad marketing, I mean that you have to sell it to everyone. It's not like something where, like if I go to somebody and say, you have no firewall, you should probably get a firewall. They'll be like, you know what? I probably need a firewall. That sounds like something I need. If I said you need like a Velo cloud appliance, this is going to make your life a lot easier. There's like, well, what's that, right? And then immediately you have a different conversation. So, I think that some of the newer technologies, a lot of people trying to fit blockchain into a round hole into a square hole or square peg. It's just not. It's hard to fit that into a good use case. You need to have the pain first and then experience that.
Right. So I think blockchain, is definitely an example. I have not got my head wrapped around it or how it might benefit our organization yet, but part of my job to try and kind of get out there, kind of understand what it is, and to see if maybe there's some point that dots connect of like, oh yeah, we could really use that.
Well, you mentioned that you are handing papers to pay, like several papers over and over. That is a use case of blockchain where you'd have one verified tokenized authentication on that package, and you don't have to have a bunch of people verifying, yep, this is the right thing, right, for that claim or what have you. So that would be maybe something that you'd explore. But yeah, there's a cost of implementation and whatnot. And I think that's going to be something that we get into more and more. But I think that Ethereum as a platform is going to have to grow a little bit before more of the mainstream business really adopts that.
Right.
With it having been said, that exact case is actually a startup that uses blockchain in Cleveland. So,
okay, cool.
So maybe
you can make an introduction.
Maybe down the road, maybe down the road that makes sense. Right. So. As I mentioned, I've known Mike for a while now, and we've had lots of conversations on IT, but we've also had a lot of conversations on more esoteric things like philosophy that tie in, right?
you never know where our conversations are going to
go. So Mike's a pretty big proponent of Stoicism.
Sure, Stoicism's cool.
If you want to give us kind of a Cliff Notes version of what that is, and then also how it relates to your life as an IT leader.
No, that's cool. I mean, Stoicism is something I discovered a couple years ago through, have a prop here. The Obstacle is the Way is a book I read on that introduced me to Stoicism. So I guess the Cliff Notes Wikipedia, it's let's call it about a 3,000-year-old philosophy that originated in ancient Greece, came up through Rome, and kind of more of the famous Stoics are from Rome. So Cliff Notes version, it's an ancient philosophy, or 3,000-year-old, whether that's ancient or not. Bringing that up to today's world, and like, why would anybody care about Stoicism? I think the promise that Stoicism gives to not just an IT leader, but to any leader, and kind of what the Stoics kind of practiced and promised was kind of a life of kind of strengthening of your will, let's call it, and more of a life of tranquility through a certain set of practices that you might follow. And I think really the main core of Stoicism is kind of understanding what you have control over and what you don't have control over. So much of our life we spend in anxiety or worry of things that never come to pass. And Stoicism and the Stoics would help us to try and understand that I can create this divide, and there's a lot that I don't have to worry about. What that means for an IT leader, and why Stoicism or understanding Stoicism a little better may benefit an IT leader, I can name any number of circumstances. I mean, IT is a stressful job. Servers crash and we get hacked and there's bugs in the code and there's any number of things that can make our life stressful. What Stoicism helps us do is take more of an objective view on it. You know, if the mail server crashes and the CEO is banging on my door, I could go into a panic, or I could take a calmer, cooler approach to it and realize, okay, the events happen. I can't control the event. The event has transpired. I'm not going to go back in time and change the fact. All I can do now is kind of control my reaction and how I'm going to respond to that and the action I'm going to take. Very kind of specific examples. So again, I think the Stoics help us kind of understand what's in our control, what's not in our control. And that is just a very basic heart of it. There's so much more on top of it. But yeah, I would say that it has, for me as an IT leader, hopefully helped to make me more objective and kind of calmer in my approach to what I do. So yeah, it's been a really interesting kind of fortunate thing that I stumbled on. Again, I can't even remember how I was introduced to that book, but it was in this book that, you know, Ryan Holiday, the book's called The Obstacle is the Way. You know, he kind of he builds it around a couple of different quotes from Marcus Aurelius, who was the emperor of Rome shortly sometime in the 280.
For a very short period of time.
Yeah, he was the emperor of Rome, but he was like the kind of ultimate, you know, kind of emperor philosopher. And this man who is the most powerful person, arguably, on the face of the earth at the time, is a Stoic. And he has a journal, and it's called Meditations. And he's writing to himself every day about how he should be a good man and about how he should be practicing Stoic principles. And so you compare to a Marcus Aurelius to a Nero, who was this crazed kind of guy who let all the power go to his head. You know, again, that's the book kind of introduces you to Marcus Aurelius, a couple of his quotes, and then goes into some material on how again, the obstacle is the way. These challenges that we face in life aren't things we should be turning away from, but we've now seen the doorway we need to go through, and we need to kind of, sounds generic, but we need to face that challenge head on a little bit. So Stoicism kind of gets into a lot of that.
Yeah, well, and the reason that I wanted to bring it up was, and I haven't brought this up on the podcast yet, but I do martial arts pretty regularly. Yeah. So, but that everyone that's in that world that also crosses a little bit into business is really big on Sun Tzu. Okay. And that's The Art of War. And it's not, like, when you turned me on to Marcus Aurelius, I read that, and I'm like, this is way more applicable to, like, this, like, I feel like The Art of War is much, at least from, and it could be my biased perspective, it's much more well-known, at least in terms of business people trying to be like, this is it. Right. You know, but if you read it, like, it's like, when you see somebody open your eyes wide and flare your nostrils.
Yeah, we're not going to be like going into meetings at work flaring our nostrils.
Right, but like I remember reading it, and like there's you can interpret it for today's life, and I get that, but Marcus Aurelius, like this the ideas of just like, all right, this is where we're at, this is how we're going to handle the situation. You know, what's next, right? It's a very more pragmatic look at it, and I feel like it actually leads more into a troubleshooter's mindset, right?
Oh yeah, for sure. I think if you can strip the emotion out, we benefit. I mean, not in every circumstance, not the positive emotion. And I think that's really what the Stoics were kind of getting at, was feeling more positive emotion, tranquility, peace, stuff like that, and helping to get the negative emotion out. So many situations at work or out of work get made much worse when we bring negative emotion into play. So if we can learn to be more objective, definitely all the way to somebody as a troubleshooter. Take the emotional component out and just look at the situation that's going on and objectively take the next step to fix the problem.
Absolutely. And you know, it also helps you kind of read through, like, as being in a service provider role, you get sometimes support tickets in. You're like, what are they really mad about in this one? Because there's a lot of information here, and you're trying to discern, you know, what it is. And you know, at the end of the day, it kind of leads you to the path of, I'm just going to fix the problem, and then we can fix emotions later, right? And it's typically just a frantic, you know, server's down, and when a server's down, nobody's happy, you know, from the end user to the employees, the people fixing it, to the boss. I mean, nobody's happy, right? And if the onus is on you to fix that, there's a tremendous amount of pressure, but operating under that pressure is crucial.
Right. So there's a lot of kind of different practices that kind of help with that scenario. Another one I would encourage anybody who's looking to continue developing their IT career is emotional intelligence.
Okay, yeah.
That's a big one too.
Yeah.
You know, again, I think some people are just kind of naturally emotionally intelligent. Sure. Other people have to learn it.
You can learn it though. It's important. It's a learnable skill. A lot of people don't think it is. I think it is a learnable skill.
It is definitely learnable. I think pretty much anything's learnable to some degree. It may not become, I may not become Tiger Woods if I go out and take some golf lessons, but I'll be a better golfer than I might have started. And I may not become the world's most naturally outgoing, emotionally intelligent person, but I certainly can get better at kind of managing my own emotion and being empathetic and helping to manage emotions in others if I learn a little bit about emotional intelligence. So another good skill to have kind of in the utility belt of an emerging leader or an IT leader is some good emotional intelligence skills.
Yeah, for sure. And that kind of leads into so Mike writes a lot of blogs. A lot. I'd say a lot.
I've started my blogging career over the last year.
You have accumulated what I would consider to be a lot. Right. Whether how you define that is up to you. But you released one somewhat recently on servant leadership, and I thought that was it's an interesting viewpoint on it, and it wasn't necessarily written as a because you're not just an IT leader. I think you are a leader, right? You're a business professional in its purest form, and you're just trying to make your business run. You happen to be in charge of IT, but I think that's an important approach because a lot of CTOs are like, I manage the IT and I let everyone else manage everything else. You're very much not that. But as far as being a servant leader, and this kind of ties into a lot of things we mentioned, how do you find that? How do you feel like that gives value to both you and then also your company? Right.
So. Servant leadership. I mean, that's a whole kind of topic in itself. But really, to me, is something again that I have fortunately somehow in my path stumbled myself into the concept of servant leadership. Again, not that I'm kind of naturally thinking I should be this servant leader, but again, in reading and exploring, and we're both kind of a couple kind of inquisitive kind of guy. I mean, just kind of out there and on learning about stuff. I kind of got the good opportunity to learn about servant leadership, and again, a lot like stoicism or emotional intelligence. These are like operating systems for life, and they're just going to benefit all the other areas of your life. So servant leadership, it's really it's kind of how to describe it, kind of a different approach where kind of maybe the traditional is you have your staff, and then you have your managers, and you have your directors, and then you have your executive team, and they all the staff's supposed to do what the managers tell them, and the manager's supposed to do what the directors do, and servant leadership kind of flips it a little bit, and that we all ultimately serve those who work for us. So in a traditional model, I'm a manager of an IT and an e-commerce team, but my job is to serve them.
Right.
I'm there to serve them and take care of them. I think you touched on a little bit when you asked about kind of the staff versus the customer, and that in that upside down pyramid of servant leadership, making sure I'm making a pyramid here. The executives serve the managers or serve the staff who ultimately serve the customers. So in the end, as a servant leader, my job would be to put the needs of my team before my own needs, and I'm taking care of them. But again, this is a blanket operating system to life approach. It's just a beautiful approach to life that I certainly have by no means whatsoever have mastered. But it's in the tool belt, and it's something I try to keep in my mind, that my job, I mean, from my kids to my wife to my community to my friends to my job at work, I'm supposed to be serving people, and that's my job, and that just adds color to life. It just adds so much more meaning and to everything you do. So I mean, a concept I've read recently from Seth Godin is kind of looking at your job as your platform. And you can look at your job as this, all right, I'm going to go, I'm going to do my job, and I'm going to do my boss tells me to do, and all this. Or I can look at my job as my platform where I try to bring the things that are important to me to work. And I use this as my platform to deliver my best work and to kind of aspire to my goals. And so one of those might be servant leadership. So specifically to my job as an IT manager or executive, again, when I have my one-on-ones with my employees, there is a block of time that's spent talking about their development. Like, what do you need to do next to continue? Where do you want to get? And you try to kind of bake it and not just be conceptual, like to bake it into how you kind of manage your teams. But it's just really a great, I definitely encourage anybody who would be more interested. Robert Greenleaf is the authority on it.
Okay.
James Hunter wrote a lot of good material on servant leadership. But
what did Seth Godin write?
So Seth Godin wrote a book called Lynchpin. Okay. Seth Godin he's a marketing
Did he write This Is Marketing?
I think that's one of his newest books.
Yeah.
He wrote The Purple Cow, The Dip.
Okay.
One of his books is called Lynchpin.
Okay.
And it's really, it's much like say in a nutshell, Lynchpin was about kind of separating yourself within your organization and kind of being indispensable as it calls. But that's the concept of looking at your job as your platform was just an eye-opening concept to me of like, okay, I choose kind of how I look at my work every day and what I bring in myself to my job.
Yeah. Okay.
Cool stuff.
It's super admirable, and I think that it's like again, there's two genres of IT managers that I see. There's the super uber techie guys that are like I'm building the technical side of things, and that's my silo, right? And then there's the IT manager that's involved in the company, right? And I think that even the term IT manager gives you a little bit of a disservice to what you're doing, but you do manage the IT,
sure.
I guess.
I guess
that's a way to look at it. But yeah, I think that's it's a very novel way of moving things forward, and I think that helps you kind of keep your mind open to new technologies, new ideas. I'm sure that not only do you ask how could we be doing things better, but you're asking your staff like how can I be doing things better
for sure
you, right?
Yeah, definitely.
And that's definitely in line with what I know about you.
Right.
You're always looking to improve, and I think that's a pretty awesome way to be.
Yeah.
Not to be too pat Mike on the back, but he's a pretty good dude.
No, I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
So that's I don't know if you want to plug anything, as we're kind of nearing the end of this.
We've talked a lot about kind of IT leadership and leadership concepts. Definitely would like to give a shout out to the Society for Information Management.
Mm-hmm.
If you are an IT leader and you're looking to network more and you're looking to get more involved and kind of stay on top of those trends and build your network out, I would say check out the Society for Information Management. It's a great organization, professional organization for IT leaders, national organization. There's a Cleveland chapter. So definitely would say check.
What's the website for that? Do you know?
I do not. I can't remember the URL.
I'll find the URL.
Put it in the show notes.
It'll be in the notes. One way or the other, we'll plug it.
I can't. It's Simnet or something, but I can't remember the URL. That and definitely would encourage anybody out there to get involved with College Now and be a mentor. Great program of kind of being able to mentor students who get scholarships through the College Now program. So definitely would encourage anybody out there who's looking to kind of give back a little bit to consider being a mentor for the College Now program.
Yeah, absolutely. And I could also vouch for the CIO, Jeff McKissick of College Now. Absolutely great guy. He's one of those IT guys that cares way more about his company than the IT, which is refreshing. He's technical and he's all in, but he does a lot. He's always. He's on the streets at events asking people to be mentors all the time.
Yeah, good.
If your IT guy's running around singing your company's message, I think that speaks volumes about your company, and it's a great nonprofit organization. And they're doing a couple things in a couple different states, but I think that his focus at least is in Cleveland. So yeah. Okay. So
all right.
Appreciate it. Thanks, Mike.
Yeah. Thank you.